Welcome to Buckeyes Now on Sports Illustrated and our continuing coverage of the Ohio State Buckeyes after, frankly, a frustrating night. I don't know if it would be a forgettable night. I think there were some memorable moments from that second half, but disappointing and frustrating, certainly probably the two biggest words that come to mind as we react to Ohio State's loss to Michigan State here on Thursday night. Along with Adam Prescott, I'm Gulick, and Adam, look, this was a game that the Buckeyes for a while looked like, they kind of had in their grasp. And then all of a sudden, a couple things happened, and offensively things started to fall apart, and Michigan State got hot, and their talent took over, and maybe a few frustrating calls at the end of the game too. But the Buckeyes couldn't get it done tonight.
Yeah, I mean, not even just Big Ten basketball. We know what this league is capable of, but that's just college basketball in general. You let a team hang around, and a team that's well coached and has high-profile recruits and capable players, that team's not going to go away quietly. And, Ohio State, it felt like it was more lopsided than what it was, early in the second half. It was 49-40 over that initial part of the second half, and it felt like Ohio State was in control. But then you look at the scoreboard, it's still only a single-digit game. Michigan State just starts kind of chipping away from there. And I think next thing you know, it's tied at 55, and now you're in a dogfight. So, I thought that there was a point where Ohio State maybe could have, put the, proverbial foot on their throat or whatnot, and couldn't quite do it. And next thing you know, like I said, you got a ball game.
And perhaps, look, I don't want to make too much out of Kyle Young's absence. It's hard to put a quantity on that, right? I mean, you look at his numbers, you look at his averages. I mean, he's right around 10 points per game in Big Ten play. But to try and assume what someone would have done, in a game if they would have played, I'm not sure that's fair. But you certainly know that you lost, his passion and his intensity, especially on the defensive end of the floor. We've probably seen him affect the defensive end more than the offensive end this year. When you're playing in a rock fight on the road in the Big Ten late in the year, you need a guy that wants to go out there and bang it around a little bit. And, Musa Jallo's ankle probably isn't 100%.
Say that a couple times fast.
Yeah, seriously. Seth Towns, clearly his knee it's getting better, but it's not quite yet where it needs to be. Ohio State's a little bit up right now, and I think they might feel a little bit snake bitten at the end of this game, but kind of feel like Kyle Young's absence was part of the difference tonight. At least that's how I look at it.
For sure, yeah. You never want to go blame it on one player because a team this deep, you always expect the next guy to step up. Musa Jallo, to be honest, really didn't give him much. Started the game, ankle looked wobbly from the start. He lost Aaron Henry. I think Aaron Henry had 7 points before the first media timeout. Lost him in transition a couple times. Musa Jallo got called for a moving screen. He gave up an offensive rebound, and at the under 12 timeout, went to the bench. Zed Key, on the other hand, came in and gave them some good minutes. I've been impressed with him. He might be a little underappreciated or overlooked or whatever you want to say, but when you sub, you always want to get better. And it seems more times than not that Holtman's lineup, takes a boost whenever the freshman from New York, comes on the floor. So I thought Zed Key did his best. I think he had 6 quick points there early in the first half to really try to pick up maybe some of that inside presence vacated by Kyle Young. But you're right. You have Washington, you have Liddell, and there really just wasn't that next guy tonight that maybe could have separated the gap when Ohio State was leading.
And Justice Suing's stat line was okay. And let's take a look at the box score here as we kind of go over this. But perhaps, again, now for the second straight game, the thing that really stands out is the frustrating, lack of opportunities for Justin Arms. I mean, he was, I don't want to say invisible against Michigan, but he really didn't have a great game. And I know that, especially considering the family history with Michigan State and his brother, I'm sure he wanted to go out and play well up in East Lansing, and it just didn't really happen for him tonight. It kind of makes you wonder, where is this Ohio State team in the national landscape? Because they've very clearly proven they're good enough to be elite, right? I mean, they've got all these quad one wins. They've certainly showed that they can go beat really, really good basketball teams. But if you take away a couple pieces here and there, it becomes a little bit tougher.
Yeah, I mean, and maybe I was shortchanging CJ Walker a little bit, saying there wasn't really that next guy after Liddell in Washington, because CJ actually gave him some pretty good minutes there off the bench, 12 and 5, I think. I don't think this is too much of an overreaction here. I mean, listen, I don't want to say it's a good loss, but Ohio State's lost to Michigan State, I think 10 of 11 times. They were looking to beat them twice in a season for the first time since 2012-13 campaign there. These things happen in a long season. You lose to Michigan. Michigan, by the way, routed Iowa tonight.
Smoked them.
Yep. Smoked Iowa. You lose to Michigan by a couple possessions. Then you got to get on the road in the wintertime, and you go lose by 4 points here to Michigan State. These things happen, over the course of a long season. So I don't want to overreact too much. It's not like Ohio State was embarrassed in either game. It's not like they didn't show up to play or were just completely, smoked out of the gym. So, obviously, you don't want to see 0 points on 0 of 1 shooting for a guy like Justin Arns, or a 0 in a column for a guy like Musa Jallow looking to step in. But, I don't want to overreact too much either.
No, and I think that's a fair take. I'm sure a big part of this is that Justin Arns isn't going to sneak up on anybody. He's going to get that much more attention now because of the way that he basically, for a solid month, he was good for about 3 threes a game. And I can think of several off the top of my head that, were momentum changing, game changing type 3-pointers. He's not going to hide anybody on anybody's scouting report. But I also think that it's more noticeable now because, the Buckeyes have started to see his ceiling a little bit. It's more noticeable when, he isn't as involved in the offense. So, something to keep your eye on going forward. Again, I'm not going to sit here and sound the alarm bells. But Ohio State's playing Iowa Sunday, and they're going to play Illinois the following Saturday to close the regular season. You made the comment a minute ago. Iowa got smoked tonight. I mean, they got flat out smoked. They're going to come to Columbus feeling like they need to come in and beat Ohio State to prove that that they just had an off night, because I think the Hawkeyes are probably still contending for a 2 seed. They're certainly not contending for a 1 seed anymore. 2 seed could be a reach, but if Iowa wins out, if they win the Big Ten tournament, I think a 2 seed is legitimate for them. And obviously Illinois is really, really good. So the Buckeyes have to figure out a way to put this one behind them tonight quickly.
Yeah, I mean, two games back at home. Iowa, by the way, not only going to be motivated to win after tonight, but Ohio State beat them the first time. So, you always got to look at that, the rematch, the team motivating. Ohio State got beat on their home floor by Ohio State. So coming to Columbus looking for revenge. That game could go either way. It's a toss-up. And then, Illinois coming to town, very good team. But Ayo Dosunmu, didn't play tonight. Illinois still won, but, we'll see about his status and availability. But 2 winnable games, but 2 very challenging games, like you said. So, head home, regroup. I'm sure Chris Holtmann will be fired up and ready to take the sidelines again after tonight. Disappointing, frustrating loss for his guys. But like I said, these things happen. You're looking at the team stats here. There's not a whole lot that's lopsided or anything like that. Neither team really shot it well from behind the arc. Both teams were whistled for 21 fouls, albeit a couple critical ones, or maybe not even fouls, but calls that didn't go in the Buckeyes' favor. So not a whole lot of overreaction when you see the box score of the performance. Just a tough couple of moments. The waved off 3 at the end of the first half on Dwayne Washington, where it looked like he probably had it out of his hands with a half second to go. Those 3 points probably would have mattered a lot down the stretch, so that one kind of hurt.
What did you think about Chris Holtmann's ejection tonight?
I think CJ Walker said it best after the game. These things just happen sometimes. That's an emotional coach, cares about his team, cares about his players, and he wants to win. I mean, you got fans sitting at home on their couch, that are revved up and they want to win. What do you think the head coach on the sideline is feeling? Dwayne Washington took some contact. There was a couple plays earlier on that, I don't know how much I feel about the Washington play at the end, but there was a couple plays earlier in the game that probably had Holtmann feeling a certain type of way. So, He's not out there getting ejected every game. These things happen, and I'm fine with it.
Murky Water says Ohio State's a number 2 seed in the Big Dance, in his opinion. They may have played themselves out of a number 1 seed tonight. They might be able to play their way back into it if things fall the right way and if they beat Iowa and Illinois. I don't think it's a lock anymore that the Buckeyes won't be a 1 seed. But by losing tonight, I think it makes that road a little bit more difficult for them for sure. Especially because so often we see the seeding is a lot more heavily predicated on how things go in the regular season than they do in the incredibly volatile, conference tournaments.
For
you
sure.
can certainly play your way. You can play your way into the Big Dance for sure by having a good tournament, but most of the time, I mean, you're evaluated on the full body of work, and the regular season matters an awful lot. So I don't disagree that Ohio State, if you're asking me where I think it's most likely they'll end up, I think a 2 seed is probably most likely. I think it's possible they could be 1. It's still possible they could fall to a 3. I think part of that's going to depend on Kyle Young's health. If Kyle Young can get healthy enough to get back on the floor, is this weekend wishful thinking? I don't want to speculate. I don't know. I mean, concussions can be, all over the place. Sometimes they're really bad. Sometimes they're not so bad. And Chris Holtmann said in his press conference, he's hopeful that they're going to get word tomorrow on Kyle's availability for the weekend. Look, this is it's a gut check kind of stretch right now for the Buckeyes. They've still got goals in front of them. A loss to Michigan State on the road is not going to cripple them, especially with the way Michigan State is starting to play better lately. If anything else, Adam, I think maybe it humbles them a little bit and just serves as a reminder that, you just can't have an off night in this league or you're going to lose.
Yeah. Yeah. I always say I think the best teams never get too high or too low. They just kind of stay in their lane and focus on themselves and, kind of keep improving. This is the first time Ohio State's lost back-to-back games all season.
Right.
And with a lot of moving parts coming into this season and just the ebbs and the flows of not even a normal college basketball season, but then you look at this kind of season with a global pandemic and changing parts and all that stuff. So, like you said, these things happen. Better to have it happen now than, the second or third week of March. I think Chris Holtmann and his team are more likely to worry about themselves than they are if they're on the 1 or the 2 line or anything like that. You want to be healthy. You want to, be focused and go play. Gonzaga, Baylor, and Michigan are all pretty much firm on that 1 line, it seems. So the window's tight, whether it's the last 1 seed or the first 2 seed or whatever happens, worry about yourself, and I think the rest can fall into place.
Yeah, and in all likelihood, they're going to get a pretty decent matchup the opening weekend. No matter who they play, they're going to be at a minimum favored to be in the Sweet 16. That doesn't mean that they're going to have cakewalk opponents, but we'll have to see how it goes. You mentioned Gonzaga, Baylor, and Michigan. Maybe it's recency bias. Maybe it's Big Ten bias. I've watched Gonzaga this year, and they are very, very good. They're very consistent. I'd say the same thing about Baylor. I'm hard-pressed to believe that Michigan's not the best team in the country this year. That doesn't mean that they're not beatable. That certainly doesn't mean that Ohio State couldn't beat them if they played them again. But after watching the way Michigan played at such a high level on Sunday and beat Ohio State when the Buckeyes played well, and then turn around and just beat the crap out of Iowa tonight, I wouldn't want to.
I think Hunter Dickinson read my story.
Yeah, maybe that's what it was. No, I think Ohio State fans are anxious for another shot at Michigan. Certainly showed last weekend that they are capable of playing with and potentially beating them. It's not a huge gap, but Michigan's really, really good.
Michigan's really good. I mean, who knows? When you get to that a couple momentum swings in a game of teams with all kinds of firepower. Who knows? I personally think it's Gonzaga's year, or at least if Gonzaga doesn't win it this year, I'm not sure if they're ever going to win it. It just feels like they've been so close. They were in a title game with Carolina a few years back. it's just felt like this is their time. Mark Few got his first ever 5-star recruit with Jalen Suggs, a point guard, and it just feels like this is their time. Obviously, Baylor hasn't been beat, so it's hard to say that Gonzaga is going to sleepwalk through the tournament or whatever. But I could see any of those three teams there beating each other, depending on who's making shots or how the game plays out.
Final thoughts on tonight's game. Obviously, E.J. Liddell, finished with a team high 18 points. He did most of his damage from the free throw line. Not a particularly efficient night offensively for Ohio State. They were just over 1.0 points per possession. Most of the last 2 months, they've been at 1.2 or higher. And I think Liddell just sought a ton of attention. Maybe Dwayne Washington regressed to the mean a little bit after having 2 really, really efficient games. He was fine. The couple of threes that he put up at the end of the game, I didn't think were his best looks. Obviously, one of them came with the shot clock about to expire, and he needed to throw it quick. But, just not the kind of rhythm that I'm used to seeing from this team so far this year.
Yeah, like you said about Washington, C.J. Walker had a good look in the corner at the end. Washington maybe didn't. C.J. Walker was clear and free there. 1 for 7.
And had a chance to set his feet. Yeah.
1 for 7 there doesn't look great for Washington. But like I said, these things happen. They were in the game. No Kyle Young on the road. Michigan State's surging. And by the way, I was thinking this tonight, not only Michigan State, but you're starting to see some of these kind of powerhouse programs, Kansas, Duke, Michigan State, with legendary coaches that have gotten off to this real tough start, this season, this pandemic season. And it was almost kind of refreshing, to start the year. Like, man, some of these big boys aren't really the big boys right now. And now you see them starting to kind of kick into gear. And Michigan State with Tom Izzo at the helm is obviously one of those programs. They're going to be right there. They might play themselves into this thing.
They might.
In 2 weeks, they're whatever it was, 6-9, now 7-9 in the Big Ten. Don't let that fool you. These guys can play. A lot of changing dynamics and moving parts with a lot of teams right now in college basketball. It's going to be whoever can kind of get hot here down the stretch, and you're seeing some of these big guys, come at you. So the sun's going to come up in Columbus tomorrow. I don't want to overreact, or I would urge Buckeye fans not to overreact too much about this. You lost by 4 points on the road against a really good team. These things happen. You're right there at the very end.
Yeah, and don't get lulled to sleep by Michigan State's record on the year, because they were a top 5 team earlier this year because they've got the talent to play that level. And frankly, they don't have very many, bad losses. The league was really tough this year. And obviously, this has just been such an odd season with COVID. And, it's affected a lot of teams in a lot of different ways, even if it hasn't meant canceled games necessarily. Everything about your rhythm has been affected, even for Ohio State. Thankfully, knock on wood, they really haven't had to deal with a major COVID-related setback, which is great. But this whole year has been a real challenging one. So hopefully the Buckeyes can find a way to mentally flush this and, recognize that you're not going to win every game in this league, and they better be ready to rock and roll on Sunday. That's for sure.
And by the way, Ohio State played, most Michigan State players pretty well tonight. Gabe Brown hit 3 threes in the first half, was relatively quiet in the second half, but Aaron Henry was just, arguably the best player on the floor. I think he went for 18 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 blocks, 2 steals. He was just really good. He was really good in the game. And, you look, Rocket Watts, 1 for 10. Rocket Watts is a really good player. Buckeyes, bottled him up. By the way, I asked my wife, Rocket Watts is one of my favorite names in college basketball. And I put it in a notebook. I asked my wife, I said, if we could change we're due with a baby boy here in April. And I said, can we, maybe potentially look at changing the name to Rocket? And, he was 0 for 6 shooting at halftime, and she quickly thwarted that idea.
5 for 6, maybe you would have swayed her differently, though.
5 for 6, maybe I could have gotten Rocket as the middle name or something. But Dalen Prescott's going to hold out and win on.
Oh, that's funny. Well, certainly a game that brought out of a lot of emotions, and I think had a lot of people throwing their remote at the TV toward the end with some foul calls that didn't happen, that they didn't like, and some disappointing efforts on the defensive end of the floor. And obviously the offense evaporated too. So
how final score, but that's a good basketball game. That's a good basketball game right there.
Yeah, no doubt. 71-67 the final tonight. Ohio State drops to Michigan State, second straight loss. We'll have coverage here over the next couple of days as the Buckeyes get ready for a huge game Sunday afternoon, 4 o'clock at Value City Arena against the Iowa Hawkeyes, who are also coming off a loss. And obviously theirs is maybe more of a black eye than Ohio State's. Should make for an awfully competitive game on Sunday. For Adam Prescott, I'm Brendan Gulick. Hope to see you again real soon on Buckeyes Now or over on our YouTube channel.